Good morning. This morning we're going to pick up where we left off last week, and we're going to finish the legs and then start working on the front rails and the top. The problem we have, however, is that I made a mistake somewhere along the way, and we have to correct that, and I'll show you what I mean. If we look at the front view, the 2D view, and let me bring the legs in here. Let's look at this real close. This is the top right here, and underneath the top is a little trim. So where the legs should have come is up to the bottom of the top, right there. But notice they don't come up to the bottom of the top. Where they come to is the bottom of the trim. And the problem with that is, of course, there's nothing for the trim to be nailed to or glued to or whatever. So we have to correct that. In order to correct that, we got to fix, let's see, 4 parts, I believe, and move some parts. We have to make the front legs longer by 3/4 of an inch. We have to make the back legs longer by 3/4 of an inch. We have to fix 2 types of slats, so that's 4 parts there. And we've got to move these rails up 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to do one leg online and everything else is going to be offline because this is a repair job and I don't want to spend too much time on it. But just to show you how it's done, what I'll do, I'll start with this leg. Let me get rid of let's get rid of everything but the legs. And I'm going to start with the front leg here. The easy way to do this, or a way to do this, remember I have to make the legs 3/4 of an inch longer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this slicing plane and I'm going to move it down. I'm going to move it something like this. And then move it down. To about there. That's fine. Now I'm going to explode the leg. And I'm going to add to this selection this rectangle and its perimeter. Now I can go to Edit, Intersect Faces with Selection, and notice now I've got lines all around here. Now I can delete the slicing plane. And I'm going to use a selection process of right to left. I'm sorry, left to right. That says everything that's entirely within the selection box gets selected. And I'm going to copy this top part over here along the red axis. Now I'm going to move this down 3/4 of an inch. One more time, I'm going to select this with a right to left this time. And notice when I did that, I selected all of this, but I didn't select these actual lines at the bottom. That's because I used the right to left motion for selection. And I can delete that. Now I can select this and add it back on. Now it's a matter of deleting these lines, these extra lines. Now I'm going to make this a component and call it front leg. And when I do, it's going to ask if I want to replace the current definition of a front leg. And of course I'm going to say yes. And now if I look at this from the front view, everything looks fine. Let me bring in the 2D and the legs again. And let's look and see if we got it right this time. We do. The front legs look good. And let's just move around, make sure we got them. Okay, that all looks good. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the back legs. I'm going to go offline to do that. I also have to use the push-pull tool to make these slats longer, but that's just a simple matter of picking each. Well, I'll do that. I'll do one of those online too. Let me do that now. Get rid of the legs and the rails. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this. Bring this up 3/4 of an inch. Bring this up 3/4 of an inch. I have to go behind. Bring this one up 3/4 of an inch. And that takes care of that one. And notice when I did, it fixed these other two. Now I'll come in and I'll do this one. There we go. So now we got that fixed. I'll bring the legs back in. And I'll bring the rails in. The rails have to be moved up 3/4 of an inch, up along the blue axis. When you do this, you have to make sure you're on the blue axis. And now I'll go offline, fix this leg, and we'll be back in business. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, I fixed the back legs, and now you see we're back in business. And if I look at this from the front view now, by the way, I'm always looking in parallel projection because I want my parallel lines to be parallel. And then we'll one more time check this. And you can see that even if I look from the back view, that the back legs and the front legs are now come up right to the bottom of the top. The top is going to rest on the legs. Now let's draw the top. First thing we have to know about drawing the top is how much overhang does the top have. And the easiest way to figure that out is right there, 1.25 inches. The top overhangs by 1.25 inches all the way around, except the back, which means we got a couple of ways of drawing this top. And I'm going to show you a way that's fairly interesting because you can use it in other situations. In this situation, it's a little extra work, but because it's a teaching moment here, we're going to do it the long way. First thing is to draw a rectangle from one corner of the leg to the other corner of the leg. And now remember, we said we had an overhang of 1.25 inches. So I'm going to use the offset tool, and we're going to bring this out 1.25 inches using the offset tool, 1.25. Now I can get rid of the inside of this rectangle. I no longer need it. Let's look at the front view again. I'm actually going to be drawing this top upside down, and you'll see why in a moment. But notice that the top, for this first 1/2 inch of the top, there's no bevel. So what I can do is use the push-pull tool, bring this up 1/2 inch. And let's go back, look at this view again. Notice the bevel for the remaining 1/2 inch. This is a 1-inch top. So for the remaining 1/2 inch, it tapers in 1/4 inch. What I do, I take the offset tool again. This time I come in 1/4 inch. Now before I do anything else, I have to put some edges here that aren't there right now. I have to connect these points. You'll see why in a moment. Next thing I do is select this inner rectangle and its perimeter. So double click and I get the inner surface and its perimeter. And I'm going to lift that up with the move tool, and I'm going to lift it along the blue axis. That's important that I lift it along the blue axis. To make sure I do that, I'm going to use the up arrow key. I'm going to press it and then lift this up. And I'm going to lift it up on the blue axis 1/2 inch. Now if I examine this, look at it from the front, you'll notice I got my top and it's upside down. So to fix that, I'm going to flip it along the blue axis. I choose the whole thing, and you can't see it here, but I'm going to flip along blue. Now if I look at it, I've got the top and it's correctly oriented. So now I can make it a component, call it top. I'm going to bring in the entity info box. I'm going to place it on the top layer. I'm sorry, I'm going to give it a unique name of top rather. I'm going to create a layer to place it on. And I'm going to do that with my layers tool. I'm going to call it that layer top. Now that I got a top layer, I could choose this and place it on the top layer. Notice the top layer is not visible. It's light here. The rest of these are dark and this is light. So I'm going to place it on the top layer. It's going to disappear. But I can always bring it back by selecting the top layer. And there we go. All right, now we got the top done. Actually, we don't have the top done. Remember I told you that this was the long way to do this. And the reason being is we don't want an overhang on the back of the top. We want it chopped off right here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the rectangle tool. And looking at this from the back, I'm going to create a rectangle. Now I'll look at it from the ISO view. You look at it from the back ISO view. There we go. I didn't do that in the right place. That rectangle's not in the right place. I'll do that one more time. Look at it from the back view so I can get the right rectangle. There we go. Now, back ISO. All right. And what I'm going to do is, like before when I chopped the leg up, I'm going to move this thing a little bit to the left, but only to the left, along the red axis. Now I'm going to explode the top. I'm going to choose it plus this rectangle. And I'm going to say Edit, Intersect Faces with Selection. Got to be careful what I do here. I just want to erase that and this. Now what I can do is I can erase these extra piece of the top here. Now I've got what I want. Notice I've got three edges where there's overhang. In the back there's no overhang. It's even with the legs in the back here. Okay, now I've got to remake this the top. Make component, call it top. It will ask me if I want to replace the original definition of the top, and I'll say yes. I again have to put it on the top layer, which still exists. It's on the top layer, and I can get rid of it by doing that. Okay, the other thing I need is, if I look at this thing from the front view, this trim, I want to make that. And the way to do that is, let me just put a line here for a moment. is to understand this profile here. It's 3/4 this way, 3/4 this way. Comes out 1/4. Down 1/4. And so this is a 1/2 inch radius circle here. So let's draw that. The way I'm going to do that, so I'm going to look at this from the back. I'm going to come out along this line 3/4. I'm going to come down 1/4. Hit escape. I'm going to come down this along this 3/4 and out 1/4. And now for to create a center, I'm going to come out here like that, down here. Now I've got a center where I can draw my circle. 1/2 inch circle. And I only want this part, or I'm sorry, this part of it. So I'll erase this. And I can get rid of this and this. Now I have a profile. So if I go to ISO view, next thing I want to do is get rid of my top by unchecking the visible checkbox for the top layer. Here's my profile, and I got to give it a path to follow. So I'm going to create a path. I want to start here, go here, here, and here. And now I'll select that path. Now I've got a path. So if I just simply, I get rid of my entity info box and put that over here. If I oh, I lost my selection of my path. Got to go back and select it. So now, while the path is selected, I go to the Follow Me tool, hover over my shape, click, and now I've got my trim. Now I'm going to select this whole trim and copy it. Well, first of all, I'm going to move it and then copy it. I'm going to move it back here. Then use the Control key to make another copy of it back here. And what I'm going to do now is come in, add some lines. I'm going to add a line there and there. Add a line here and here. And do the same thing on this side. I'm going to erase, well, let me do it this way. I'm going to erase this, going to erase this, and examine both ends, make sure I've got a face, and I do. Now I'm going to call this front top trim. going to do a similar thing down here. I don't have to, I only need one part this time though. So I only need to do one side of this. And now I'm going to get rid of, well, let me do that again. There we go. And I'll come around, make sure I've got a face and that it's the right color. It's not, that's the outside color, so I'm going to reverse faces. There we go. And now I'm going to make this a component and call it side top trim. And let's move some things into place now. I'm going to copy this using the Control key and the Move tool. I'm going to flip it along red. Move it up into place. All right, now I have my top trim. So just to make things complete here, bring in the entity info box. I'm going to add a layer called top trim. Since there's only one front top trim, for its unique name, I'm going to use the same name. And I'm going to put it on the top trim layer. Okay. Now, this one, you'll notice that I have two side top trims, a right and a left. So I'm going to call this one right side top trim. And I'm going to put it on the top trim layer. This one I'm going to call left side top trim. And I'm going to put it on the top trim layer as well. And so now if I want the top trim, that's the top trim. I have it. Now I need some filler strips in here to take care of this space in here. So that's easy enough. Let me just get rid of the top trim. Take the rectangle tool here. Come down. The trim is 3/4 of an inch wide, so I just say 0.75. Bring this out to here. And I'm going to call this top trim filler. And I'll copy it here to the other side using the control key. And I'll call this one right top trim filler. Call this one left top trim filler. I'll select the both, make a new layer, put them on there. And so now if I bring in the top trim filler, top trim, and the top, and examine this, you see I'm beginning to get the view I want, very similar to this one. Okay. Again, we're getting a little long. I think I'm going to take, I think what I want to do is complete the legs. And then we'll pick up next week where we left off, because the video is already a half hour long. So let me get rid of the top trim filler. And let's get rid of all the front view. All right, here's one of the problems we have that we haven't fixed yet. Is if you look at the slats, let's get rid of the rails for the moment. And the legs. Notice that this tongue right here needs to go into the leg. And it needs to go in 3/8 of an inch. So what we're going to do is put that into the leg. So let's get rid of the sides, bring the legs back. And I'll edit. Oh, I guess I'll start with this one. I'm going to create, notice that that's a 1/2 inch wide, and that tongue is 1/4 of an inch. So 1/4 of an inch from a 1/2 inch is 1/4 of an inch. If I divide it by 2, it's 1/8 of an inch. So I need to come up with some construction lines that are 1/8 of an inch in from those edges. I'll start here, down here. I'll show you what I'm doing once I've got this done. I'm going to bring that back 3/8 of an inch. Notice that is essentially a stopped dado. It ends in the mortise, but it doesn't go up here. It doesn't punch out the top. It's a stopped dado for those tongues to fit into. Now I've got one also here. By the way, notice since I edited that leg, that one also is now fixed up. I'm going to do the same thing here. One-8. One-8. back 3/8. Get rid of my construction lines. Now all I have to do is the front. And only the back of the front has this. So I'll zoom around here. Edit this front leg. I clicked that in the wrong place. Let's do that again. And that should be it. Whoa. The undo tool. Good friend. All right. Now, if I bring in the sides and examine this, you can see that there's a place for the sides to go in there, and there's also a little room left here for the sides to expand. And that's what we want. Same thing here. Just a little bit of room left in there for the sides to expand. All right. Let's see what we've got so far. Okay, this video really is long now, so I'm going to have to stop, and we're going to have to do the rails, front rails next week. This is going to take a little longer than I thought, but had we not had that problem with the legs that I created sometimes back, we'd have been all right. So I'm going to stop here, and I'll see you next week, and we'll pick up with the rails. Have a good week.